Welcome to the Hawkins Observer, a podcast where two half-lifelong friends recap and analyze every episode of Stranger Things as we prepare the release of the final season this November.
As always, we'll give you a scene-by-scene recap discussing the plot and developments, as well as sharing our thoughts, memories, and reactions.
And it's the final episode of season 1.
We're going to dive right in because it's a doozy. Once again, please like and subscribe. Mom, it's the two separate buttons. One is a thumbs up and the other says subscribe.
Yep.
Thank you. Here is season 1, episode 8, the finale, The Upside Down.
Let's dive in. Opening scene, it's a starry night. Camera descends on the lab. So it's the same night, and Joyce has been detained in handcuffs and she's yelling, "Let me out of here!" She's handcuffed to a chair in this kind of questioning room. Dr. Brenner walks in, very shadowy figure, and he walks up to Joyce and says, "Your son, we know you've been in contact with him. When and how?" And Joyce is like, "I'm not telling you, let me out." And then Dr. Brenner's like, Six people have been taken this week. This thing that took your son, we don't really understand it, but its behavior is predictable like an animal. They eat. You have to take more sons. You can take more daughters. I want to save them. I want to save your son, but I can't do that without your help. And Joyce is like, "Stop. I know who you are. You stole my son. You made us had a fake funeral. You faked his own body. And now you're asking for my help." And Joyce is like, "Go to hell." Meanwhile, but probably at the same time, Hopper is in some other room in the lab getting tased, and these three agents are just, hazing him. "What do you know?" And Hopper, being snarky, goes, "Did I stutter? I know everything." Tase him again. "What do you know?" Then he finally goes, "I know you do experiments on kidnapped kids whose brains you've turned into mush. And this time I know you went a little too far in a big way and you're trying to cover up your tracks, which meant you had to kill Benny, you faked this Will's death, and you made it look like that little girl ran away." And so then they're like, "Okay, this guy knows everything. Who are you working with?" He goes, "Nobody. But I did tell my friends over at the Times they're going to blow this whole story wide open." Tase him again. And then the guy gets right up his face and says, "You're just a junkie. You're a small town cop who had a bad week and you took too many pills." And the bad lady's like, "You made a mistake coming back here." And Hopper, I love this part. He's like, "No, I didn't. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to let me and Joyce go. You're going to give us what we need. We're going to find her son. Then we are all going to forget this ever happened."
Yep. Yeah, you can tell that this lab does more than the experiments and energy stuff. They have interrogation rooms and handcuffs and all this stuff at the ready to get rid of people.
Yep.
But yeah, Hopper lets them know in no uncertain terms that he knows exactly what he says he thinks he knows.
Yep.
He's not faking that, and the agents get the picture. He's like, he lays it all out on the table. "I know you turned Terry Ives' head to mush. I know that you kidnap kids and do experiments." And he indicates that he knows about the mistake that 11 made opening the gate. It's like, you pushed too far this time and you messed up in a really bad way.
Yep.
And so when Dr. Brenner comes in and offers him a cigarette, it's just like, okay, we're going to have a conversation. I guess that's later. But in the scene with the bad lady and the other agent, he's like, I know everything, and you now know that I know everything. So maybe we can come to some sort of arrangement or agreement that you're going to let us go, and I'm not going to say anything else because it's in the mutual interest of both of us to just forget that this ever happened.
Yep. I mean, he goes in there. He breaks back into the lab this time with a plan. Before he was just broke in, started searching hallways, but this time he knows what he's doing. He breaks in, plans to get caught, then tells them, "This is what we are going to do."
Yeah, and it's important too to know that he just takes all of that tasing like a champ because he knows it's part of his plan. So it's not intimidating to him that he's getting tased.
Yeah.
It's not torture for him. He knows that eventually he'll just get his way. And in a way, he'll let them have what they want to.
Sure. From there, we cut back to the gymnasium. Lucas, Dustin, Mike, and 11 are all sitting on the bleachers. And Mike's like, "Where are Nancy and Jonathan?" He looks outside and he realizes Jonathan's car is gone. And 11, they're like, where did Jonathan and Nancy go? And they're like, I don't know. And then they're like, maybe 11 knows. And they're like, 11, do you know where they went? And 11 just goes, Demogorgon.
Yep.
Demogorgon.
Yep. Because she knows they're headed back to the buyer's house with a plan.
That's probably her scariest one-word response
Yeah.
this entire season. She's had a
Yeah.
lot of one-word responses, but this one was like, okay.
Yeah. We've been hearing it called the monster all this time, but
Oh, that's
she
true.
she uses their own D&D word for it.
That's true. From there, sure enough, Nancy and Jonathan are back at Jonathan's house. They get the supplies from the trunk and they just go to work. And it's an interesting scene because they're so busy and there's no dialogue here. They reinstall the Christmas bulbs. They nail the bear trap to the hallway floor. Nancy puts bullets in her gun. Jonathan puts spikes through this bat. I love that Nancy's still on gun duty. Jonathan's still on bat duty. Uh,
Yep.
Nancy pours gasoline inside on the floor of the house. Then they carefully set the trap, which is this heavy spring loaded. And they step back and trap is set.
Yep.
And they just look at each other.
It's the classic 80s montage of
Yeah.
a plan coming together. It's very Home Alone-esque,
Oh
you
yeah.
know, where they've all just you can kind of see the plan as you're watching what they're doing, with the spike bat and the probably diesel and kerosene or something, and
Yeah.
um, the bear trap and everything. And Nancy's plan from a couple episodes ago of trying to lure this thing out into their world so that they can dispose of it is coming together. It's going to be at the expense of the buyer's house.
Yep.
Up in flames,
That's a
apparently.
great comparison. Like set in motion like the 80s Home Alone, but a completely different tone. Like
Right.
just that's really
Yep. All
funny.
we hear is music and sound effects as they set their plan in motion.
From there, we see Brenner walking in to talk to Hopper, and he first pulls him a cigarette to let Hopper smoke, as if Dr. Brenner's the one that's about to level with him. And Dr. Brenner, in his creepy voice, "Where's the girl?" And Hopper, again, in complete control of the situation, he's like, "Listen, you have to give me your word that nobody is ever going to find out about this, and that those boys, you're going to leave them alone, and then I'll tell you where your little science experiment is." I mean, it's
Yep.
so smart.
Yeah, he's appealing to Brenner's
Yeah,
maybe alleged fear that
yeah,
Hopper knows everything. He's spoken with Terry Ives. He knows about the gate. He knows where 11 is. He has the power in his hand now. Brenner has already disposed of a crazy mom who was a part of these experiments already.
yep,
She's small potatoes. They can make her go away a lot easier than a
right.
chief of police with connections and a constitution that will take anything they want to send his way. So,
That's so true. I love that he just had a plan and he speaks Brenner's words of nobody's going to find out about this. And I can assume Brenner's go, yeah, yeah, let's not let everybody in. It's
yep,
mine. That's what he wanted to hear. From there, we cut to Hopper and he's being released from Dr. Brenner. He walks in, they handcuff Joyce and they start walking together. And Joyce is like, I don't understand, like, what's going on? And Hopper's like, we came to an agreement. And Hopper essentially says, if you want Will back, this place had nothing to do with it. Like that's what you have to get through your mind now, that we've made an agreement and we're going to get Will, but this place had nothing to do with it. So Hopper and Joyce are led down to the elevator and they're taken to a suiting room with the hazmat suits. They're like, what's this? And someone's like, it's protection because that atmosphere is actually toxic. And then after they don their suits, Joyce and Hopper get off the elevator and start going down the hallway.
yep. They do not have the advantage of the winch that Shepard had, as they are donning their suits. Nobody's clipping them into anything to pull
No.
them back out. And Joyce gets really worried that they say it's toxic because she's like, my boy's been in there
That's
for
true.
days now.
Yep.
Like he's unprotected. So scary scene.
they cut to the outside of the lab, and everybody, it's strange because like for all we know, just Hopper and Joyce are now in the lab. Dr. Brenner, Bad Lady, other scientists, military police, everyone's filing outside. And we find out the Bad Lady's name's Connie, by the way. I think I saw that in the subtitles. Her name's Connie. And Connie says, I'm telling you, this is a mistake.
Yeah.
And Brenner says,
Oh yeah.
it's gone. Isn't that what you wanted? And Connie says, and if they find the boy? And Dr. Brenner says, that's not going to happen. So the troops and scientists load up in their military vehicles and unmarked black Ford LDTs as Joyce and Hopper are walking straight into the vines, the mucusy wall vines this time. And sure enough, as soon as they get into this through this portal, the wall just goes.
Yep.
And heals right behind them.
It's interesting in this scene that, or the scene before where Brenner and Hopper are kind of striking this arrangement. We expect that Hopper might be conceding where Eleven is, knowing that she can take care of herself, or at least wondering if maybe I can tell you where Eleven is, but that doesn't necessarily mean she's going to get captured because, you know, the boys have already told me what she can do. We've already seen Troy in my office explaining her capabilities.
Right.
So I'll concede where Eleven is because it probably won't lead to her capture. And Brenner's saying the same thing. Like, I'll let you go into the Upside Down and find Will because I know what's in there. You're not coming out. Will's probably gone. So, like, they're both conceding things, thinking that what they're actually conceding isn't much of a concession at all.
That's a really good point. That's a really good point. The credits roll after that. In the next scene, where we quickly realize we're in the Upside Down. It's a great cinematography. Yeah, it's great cinematography because as the scene starts, the camera does a barrel roll in order to put Hopper and Joyce right side up in the Upside Down. Very smart. Joyce is breathing like really heavy. She's obviously like freaked out by where she is. Hopper tells her like, take deep breaths, relax, just focus on your breathing. And as Hopper's talking to her, there's that strange echo of his own voice. But no sooner does he say these comforting words, Hopper has a flashback. I think it's his first flashback of the series. And it's to when his daughter's still alive. They're out like probably the backyard with his wife and they're playing and he's having fun with her. But then all of a sudden the daughter's face just goes really serious, almost like she's seeing something, but she just goes really serious and starts hyperventilating essentially. And Hopper's like, just breathe in and out, in and out. So that's probably what made him have that flashback, because he was the same thing he was saying to Joyce, just breathe. From there, we see them walking away from the lab. They're in the Upside Down, but we see Joyce and Hopper walking away from the lab into essentially the woods in Hawkins.
Yeah, so we see in real time they are at the lab, but in the Upside Down. And so we can draw from that wherever they're going is going to be the exact distance of whatever it is in the real world.
Yes.
So if they're going from the lab to back into downtown or back to the police station or back to the buyer's house, they're walking that real distance, but just in the Upside Down. And we get a picture here. Maybe we're going to find out about what happened to Hopper's daughter in this flashback. Are we going to learn more about it? But he's dealing with his own internal trauma as he's trying to help Joyce through this.
Woo. From there, we head back to the buyer's house, and there's a couple scenes back and forth here. So we're in the buyer's house, and Jonathan and Nancy are going over the plan. They're like, okay, straight into Will's room. Don't accidentally step on the trap. Wait for the yo-yo to move, because that's the sign that the beast is out there. And then Jonathan's like, ready? Nancy's like, ready. They take knives in each of their palms and cut their hands open to draw blood, essentially, to attract the monster. And then from there, we cut back to the gymnasium, and everyone's getting restless. And one of them's like, guys, we just can't wait around. And someone makes the point, Mike, we're actually fugitives. Like, let's stick to the chief's plan because I think Lucas says by staying here, we're keeping 11 safe and out of sight. And it was Dustin that goes, yeah, your sister, she's kind of a badass. She's fine. Don't worry
Yeah.
about her. And
Yeah.
then
He saw
Dustin,
her break that lock open.
yeah, she's a badass now. And Dustin starts to walk away. And Mike's like, where are you going? And Dustin's like, I'm getting pudding from the school cafeteria, pudding. Because Elle needs to be recharged. Like, she can't, you got to put pudding in her to recharge her.
Yeah. Yeah. He knows where to find it because he's like, I think that lunch lady's been hiding it from us.
He is that kid that always asks for a second. From there, we cut back to the buyer's house. Nancy and Jonathan, in a very tender moment, are sitting on the couch and they're helping each other bandage their recently bloody palms. And Nancy's like, did you hear that? Jonathan's like, it's just the wind. And Jonathan's like, don't worry. My mom said, like, when the monster comes around, the lights start to blink and, it's kind of like an alarm. And as they're bandaging each other's hands, their fingers kind of linger for a little tender hand in hand moment. And then there's a knock at the door. It's Steve. Love this guy. I'm just such a good guy now. Steve, he opens the door and it's like chained. So Nancy kind of peeks out. Steve's like, I just want to make things right. Like he shows up at the buyer's house to make things right, but Nancy answers. That's kind of weird, but he still is cool. Uh, but then he sees Nancy's bandaged hand, and then Steve goes into defensive mode. Like, did Jonathan do this to you? Like, why? How did you get cut? He busts in, and Jonathan says, "You need to get out of here." And then Steve's like, I can't imagine the visual stimulation of all the lights and craziness. And then Steve's like, "What's that smell?" So it's a strong smell of gasoline or kerosene. And then Nancy pulls a gun on Steve and goes, "Steve, get out." She's yelling at him like this is a crazy scene. She's pulled a gun on him and she's yelling at him to get out. And Jonathan's trying to get her attention as she's yelling at him, Nancy, Nancy, the lights. So sure enough, we think the monster's there because the lights start blinking. And poor Steve is clueless as to what's going on as the monster breaks in from the ceiling. And they pull Jonathan, they pull Steve down the hall. He yells jump, so Steve jumps over, like, they all jump over the bear trap, and Steve is just like, Jesus, what's that thing? What's that thing? And then they all gather in Will's room and it goes kind of quiet and they're like, what's it doing? Then the electric stops blinking and it goes quiet, and they creep into the hallway to check, and the bear trap hasn't been set off yet. It's one of my favorite scenes.
Yeah. Steve, I mean, him coming to the buyer's house to make things right can only mean that he's there to talk to Jonathan.
Yeah.
So he's not trying to win Nancy anymore. He's just there to do what's right by Jonathan. He is surprised to see Nancy there and then stumbles upon this insane scene of, all of this stuff. And Jonathan's hand is bandaged too. And he sees the bear trap and he's just like, what did I walk into? What is going on? And
Yeah.
Nancy is not trying to reason with him.
Explain. Nope.
She's just like, you get out right now.
Yep.
And I have a gun to make sure that you do.
Yeah.
But it's too late. And Steve doesn't have a chance to get out before the monster breaks through the ceiling and they lead him down the hallway. And you can tell he's just in such total shock.
Yep.
Does not know what is going on or what's going to happen.
Yeah, he doesn't have time to get jealous or angry that these two are together. He doesn't have time to, because the scene unfolds so quickly in front of his eyes. There's crazy lights, smells like gasoline. Nancy's pulled a gun on me. Boom, monster. So he just literally does not have time to get angry at either of them. Oh, and their hands are bloody.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love that scene so much. Cut back to Joyce and Hopper walking along in the upside down. Hopper observes what looks like a big egg that's grown on the ground. He kind of touches it, doesn't really do anything. Joyce walks off from him, but then in the distance she sees Castle Byers, and she sees that it's been destroyed, and she starts screaming, "Will, Will!" She just starts yelling for Will. Hopper walks up to Castle Byers, and in the wreckage, he sees a stuffed animal, the wreckage, and that flashes him back to the hospital. It flashes him back to reality where he's sitting in a hospital bed, and we see his daughter's there. He's reading a story to her. Now, his daughter, who in the scene before had this pretty little girl blonde hair, now his daughter is completely bald. So we're starting to know she's in the hospital. She's bald now. And the last line he reads from this book to her is just glad to be alive. It's such an interesting world. Quick cut from there. He's still in the hospital, but he's in a stairwell, just crying to himself in the stairwell. And then cut back to the upside down where Joyce just keeps keeps yelling for Will. Can't fathom.
Yeah, I mean, as a father of two young girls myself, I can barely watch this scene and just can only imagine what he's going through sitting in that stairwell crying because he's trying to be strong to her. He's got this smile on his face while he's reading her a book, in her hospital bed, but you can tell the toll that it's taking on him emotionally as he's crying in the stairwell. And this little stuffed animal at Will's fort takes him right back to it. And we get the idea that we are going to find out what happened to his daughter a little bit more, but as he's helping Joyce through this, trying to find her son, he is experiencing. He's having to, be strong for her and also kind of suppress his own emotions as he's remembering his daughter.
Yeah. It's come up a few times so far, like his pursuit of a missing kid and what he wouldn't do to have his own kid back, like all this work he's doing just to find Joyce's kid. Like he's like, I would have done 1,000 times this if it could have brought my kid back. Okay.
Yeah.
This is a long scene. Stick with us. We're back to the Byers' house. And Jonathan, Nancy, and Steve all creep into the living room, the bat and the gun. Steve is muttering to himself, "This is crazy. This is crazy. This is crazy." And Nancy's like, "It's going to come back, so you need to leave right now." And he's in such a panic state that he actually does. He runs out, goes to his car to leave. As he's getting in his car, he looks back, and sure enough, the lights are going crazy again in the house. We assume that the monster's back. Jonathan and Nancy are back to back and just spinning and looking, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? The lights go completely out. And sure enough, the beast is right there behind them, and it tackles Jonathan and just gets so close to his head, like it's about to bite his head off. Nancy starts firing bullets at the beast. Doesn't seem to be doing anything. We think this is the end of Nancy and Jonathan. They're out of bullets. Jonathan's on the ground when our best new friend runs in, Steve. He's picked up the bat that Jonathan dropped, and he just starts going at this monster. In comparison to Nancy's baseball bat skills, she makes Steve look like a freaking ninja because he's just hitting it and dodging its swipes. He just looks amazing in this scene. It stumbles back, the monster, and it steps into the trap, and it gets trapped. Jonathan's like, "Now," and they light it on fire.
Steve, my favorite thing in this episode is when Steve breaks for like a second while the monster's regathering itself, and he like twirls the bat in his hand. Like this is not the first time he's wielded a spiky baseball bat. But yeah, it looks like he's auditioning for a Major League Baseball team the way he's swinging it, and it works really well to lead him to the bear trap, and the yo-yo moves, and we know that traps the Demogorgon where he is.
His flourish with the bat is like when 11 had made Troy pee his pants, and 11 like twirls out of the room. It's kind of the same, just polished, flourish.
Yep, confident. He knows how to handle a bat.
From there, we're back in the upside down, and Joyce and Hopper can hear screams in the distance. In the Byers' house, Jonathan is actually extinguishing the monster. The steam smoke clears, and in the bear trap is just a pile of like sizzling goo. Hopper and Joyce make it to the Joyce's house in the upside down. In the real buyer's house, the individual lights are starting to light up, not flickering all of them, but the one by one, the lights are starting to light up in the ceiling. In the upside down, Hopper and Joyce come upon where the bear trap should have been, but instead it's just a burnt, crispy piece of carpet, kind of bloodied. And Hopper's like, it was her. And the real buyer's house, they follow the Christmas lights where Joyce and Hopper are walking in the upside down, and Jonathan has to say, like, Mom, is that you? And Joyce can hear Jonathan say that. But they don't linger because Hopper says, Joyce, come on. Outside in the real world, street light lights up, and Jonathan's like, Nancy or one of them's like, where's the monster going? And Jonathan realizes, I don't think that's the monster lighting up these lights right now.
The lights are acting totally differently now than they were earlier when the monster was close.
Mm-hmm.
They were flashing really quickly. There didn't seem to be any order to it or any sort of pattern. It was just a flurry of flashes and twinkles and craziness. And now it's as though, they're moving down the hallway in succession, as Nancy or as Joyce and Hopper walk through the upside down, and Jonathan's putting it together that like this is different. This isn't the monster.
Right.
And when he sees the flash out or the street light outside, he wonders if it's his mom. I guess he was told the plan that they were going to be going to the upside down or whatever. I'm not entirely sure,
We assume that, yes.
but
I think we
yeah,
assume that. Maybe we
yeah,
don't assume that because it's as if Joyce didn't know that was about to happen as she and Hopper drive off. But maybe
yeah,
it would be just like Hopper after to pull Jonathan aside off camera and be
yeah,
like, here's what we're going to do. If we die, we
yeah.
die, but this is the best way to save your brother.
Yeah, and two, at this point, nothing is going to be unbelievable. So
Mhm.
maybe the way that they're navigating around the house gives Jonathan an idea that whatever these lights are, they're showing a familiarity with the layout of the house or
Mhm. Mhm.
whatever that Jonathan realizes like maybe this in some weird way is my mom. I don't know, but
Yeah.
he is right.
From there, we cut back to the high school, and it's a tender little scene between Mike and Eleven. It starts with Dustin yelling from the cafeteria, Mike, I found the chocolate pudding. And Mike asks Eleven, like, are you feeling any better? And Eleven's like, what's pudding? And so Mike, assures her, like, hey, after this is over, don't worry. My mom is an awesome cook. And Eleven's like, oh, I'll get to eat Eggos after this. And Mike's like, yeah, but real food too. And then he's such a kind kid in this situation. He's like, I was thinking my parents can get you an actual bed. Essentially, they'll be like your parents and they'll take care of you. And it's like Nancy will be your sister. And then Eleven's like, oh, and you'll be like my brother. And then Mike's like, no, 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 no. And that confuses Eleven. And Mike's like, it's different. It's like that. No, I won't be your brother. And like Eleven's picking up that he's being weird, and he's like, Mike, friends don't lie. And then Mike's like, okay, I was thinking maybe we could go to the snowball dance together. It's like it's cheesy, but you're not supposed to take your sister there. And Eleven's like, she's oblivious. She's like, why not? And Mike explains, you're supposed to go to dances with somebody that you like. And Eleven oblivious, like a friend. And Mike's like, no, not a friend. And then they kiss. Oh, it's so cute. And Eleven has the best
Real.
smile, a real smile, possibly for the first time, just the best little
Yep.
smile. No sooner do they do
It's a
that,
sweet
though.
little moment there. Yeah.
Yeah. No sooner do they do that than they see headlights outside.
Yep. I love in this scene when Dustin yells that he's found the pudding. It's the loudest, most intense, most sincere yell that Dustin's had all season,
Yeah.
and it's so fitting.
He was right,
Um,
and he's about to
yeah,
help the group.
and we know that Mike actually does feel about 11 like we suspect he probably did.
Hmm.
Um, but we don't get to linger there too much before um, we sense that they're in some real trouble.
Yep. So Mike sees the headlights and he assumes it's Nancy, so he goes outside to see his sister, but it's the soldiers and scientists rolling up to one of the buildings on the school grounds. Mike runs back in and yells, or doesn't yell, but he says, "Guys, they found us. They know we're in here." So they go to hide. Brenner walks in eventually. These police are just going, military police going door to door to door to look for these kids. Dr. Brenner sees this swimming pool in the middle of the gymnasium floor. And sure enough, the military police eventually find them, and the kids just take off running. They're like, "How did they find us?" Dustin again assumes they've been landowed. Then they get cornered in a hallway, baddies on all sides. Bad lady, she pulls a gun with two military police behind her, and the scene goes into slow motion as 11 stares down this bad lady, and they just look frozen. And all of a sudden, the bad lady and the military police start bleeding from their eyes, and they pass out onto the floor, presumably dead. Elle also passes out, and she just won't wake up.
He takes on like 12 people all at once. It's the probably the most comprehensive use of her powers yet,
Mm-hmm.
because all of these guys bleed from the eyes simultaneously, and then they all fall at once to the ground, and we're just like, oh, um, you know what? I mean, again, like we've seen 11 do this, but now it's on an even bigger scale.
Mm-hmm.
She's taken out all these guys, eliminated the threat from both directions,
Mm-hmm.
and she's paid now a real consequence because she's not just weak and tired and looking like she's used her powers, like she's out cold.
Yep. It's the it took her even more of her energy or what have you to do that than it did to flip a van over the boys in this in a
Right.
couple scenes before. So she's out. From there we cut back to the upside down, and now we're just seeing Hopper and Joyce walk down Main Street, but they're seeing more blood, so they're still following this trail of blood. Hopper's like, "This way, Joyce." And we see that they arrive at the library, and the music just keeps ratcheting up the scene's intensity. The music is so cool right here. We're just like, oh
Yeah.
boy, the library, something's about to happen.
Yeah, it's interesting that it's the library because I remember watching it even on my rewatches. I was just like, why the library? Like this doesn't really make much sense, but we soon find out. I mean, they're just following this trail
Right.
and it just leads them to the library. And they are they're getting closer.
From there, we see the boys are trying to help 11. She's still just not coming to. The boys are like, she's barely breathing. And then Dr. Brenner walks around the corner at the same time and says, "Step away from the child." And they're like, "No." And Mike's like, "If you want her, you have to kill us first." And Lucas is like, "Eat shit." It's so funny that he's just on 11's side,
Yeah.
110%. The boys are apprehended from behind because they were paying attention to Dr. Brenner. Dr. Brenner tenderly picks up 11. It's like, 11, 11, can you hear me? You're sick. You're sick. I'm going to take you home and make you better, so no one else gets hurt. And 11 kind of comes to in his arms. And she just says, "Bad, bad." And then she looks and is panicked and is like, "Mike, Mike." As she says that, electricity starts flickering. And then Mike kind of puts two and two together. He's like, "Oh no, blood, there's blood." As soon as he says that, the walls start breaking down. A demogorgon appears. The military police start shooting it. The boys pick up 11 and run with her away from the demogorgon. And somehow this demogorgon like gets through the military police and seemingly goes right to Brenner.
What is that about? I mean, Mike calls it. He's like, "Oh no, there's blood. There's a lot of blood." And he calls it right away, and the Demogorgon comes right through the wall where the school mascot is,
Yeah.
and just like busts through it and goes right after Brenner. But the boys escape with 11. They kind of get her away, and it's an interesting scene too with now this Papa and his child, in contrast to Hopper and his daughter that we saw in the last episode or the last scene. I mean,
Right.
where he's comforting her, but you don't get comforted by it as an audience. And 11 even identifies like, "You're not my Papa anymore. Now you're bad," and now she wants Mike,
Yes.
and they get away with 11.
From here, crazy. We're back to the library. Hopper and Joyce start seeing some really scary, nasty stuff. They see just a skull, then they see a body, and they just keep going deeper and deeper into some airport into the library. They're shining their flashlights around. They pan, and boom, there's Will. But it barely looks like him because there's something attached to his mouth. Someone, I think Joyce yells, "Oh my God!" Hopper, in that moment, has another flashback to his child in the hospital because she's got a feeding tube coming out of her mouth. Hopper runs up to Will in the upside down and just starts pulling this thing from Will's face, but it turns out it's just down his throat. He's just pulling it, and it's just long like an electric eel. Pulls it, throws it on the floor, shoots it a few times. Um, Dustin is actually, we cut back to the school, and Dustin is actually the one carrying Elle all by himself. That's an interesting, I don't know why he's the strongest. So Dustin's carrying 11 through the high school. They get her into a classroom and they put her up on a table. And then Mike again, right by her side. Just hold on a little longer. The Batman are gone. We'll be home soon. Mom, again, we'll get you your own bed. You can eat as many Egos as you want, and then we can go to the snowball together. And 11's like, promise? Like sickly, but promise. And Mike's like, promise. They hear more shooting outside. They can hear the beast screaming. Silence. Then they're like, is it dead? No. The door breaks down, and there's the Demogorgon in this little classroom thing. So the boys, they just kick into action with Lucas's wrist rocket, and they just start handing in stones. Lucas does his best to just fire off wrist rockets at this thing. Every time he hits it, though, it does nothing to it. He finally loads one more rock and fires at it, and it seemingly pins the Demogorgon to the wall. Then they realize it's 11. She's off the table. She's controlling this Demogorgon now. Mike yells, 11, stop. And 11 uses just enough of her powers to get Mike out of the way, sends him flying. 11 walks right up to this Demogorgon. It can't get to her. She's got it under control. Her nose is bleeding. She looks at the boys and she says, goodbye, Mike. Mike is crying because I think he knows what's about to happen. 11 turns around and looks at the beast and goes, no more. And then she raises her hand and she screams so loud that the boys have to cover their ears. She's screaming and just sending her energy to this beast to destroy it. And her skin is literally disfiguring and changing colors. Uh, the beast, it dissolves into like a particulate and then like a thunder crack. And we see that both the beast and 11 are gone. Mike yells, 11, 11, where are you? She's not there.
Yeah, where did she go? Like, I mean, this is an insane scene. Um, Opening with Joyce and Hopper at the library finding, I think they see Barb too, don't they? Isn't that one of the bodies that they find?
Maybe, but I don't recall.
Okay, I think it was, but it immediately reminds Hopper of the mask that his daughter wears in the
Mm-hmm.
hospital. I mean, I'm assuming it's like a oxygen breathing thing
Mm-hmm.
since that's what she was having trouble with.
Mm-hmm.
But Hopper has this brief flashback and then kind of pushes at his side as he's yanking this living vine thing out of Will's body. and Will's eyes are closed. You don't really know if he's dead or alive, but they eliminate that immediate kind of threat to Will, and then um, yeah, we get right to the Demogorgon at the school in that classroom. I mean, I you wonder if Eleven's dead. Actually, I mean, she barely comes to after the miracle of ending all those people's lives in the hallway. But then, you know, after all of these military personnel shoot these automatic rifles at the Demogorgon, Lucas, shoots rocks out of a slingshot, and the last one that he fires, throws the Demogorgon 20 feet across the classroom, right up against the wall. The
Yep.
boys are just like, yeah,
Finally.
and clearly it was 11 using all of her power, but she's gonna end it right now, even if it means ending herself. And we don't know what that means or how that happens. I mean, it's more than just using her powers now, because after the deed is done, she's gone.
Yep.
She's not weak anymore. She's not sitting there laying on the floor. Like, she's gone,
Like
and we don't know how or why or where she is.
like you said, like uh I mean, okay, a couple scenes before, Papa's like, we're going farther than we've ever gone before. So we assume that she just keeps using more and more of her power, possibly not even knowing her own extent and the consequences. So when she says goodbye, Mike, I mean, I think it's safe to assume that she thinks this is going to kill her too, to use all her
Yep.
power to kill this Demogorgon.
Yep. She might be right. We don't know.
From there, we cut back to the library in the Upside Down, and Hopper is giving Will CPR, and he's explaining to Joyce, okay, get ready. You got to pinch his nostrils and breathe into his mouth. Gives him 30 chest compressions. Uh, Joyce gives him 2 rescue breaths, and it's not working yet. And then Hopper just doesn't punch, but he just starts beating on Will's chest as if to like just trigger his heart back into beating. And Joyce is just like, listen to me, Will. I love you so much. She's just pouring out every ounce of love and energy she can as Hopper has another flashback, and it's to his daughter receiving CPR. And they're just saying, please, please wake up. And she flatlines in the hospital, his daughter. From there, cuts back to Hopper in the Upside Down, continuing to just punch on Will's chest. And then Will gasps and comes to just barely, and he's just barely alive, but they know he's come to, so they put one of their hazmat respirators on him, like, breathe, come on, come on. Um, and then, yes, there's a song that plays behind them, and it says, I didn't catch the full song, but there's a lyric that just says, when it's cold, I like to die. Did you hear that?
I
Oh,
didn't notice that. No.
oh, it's just so this song continues playing. I should have looked it up, but the song continues playing as the Wheelers pull up to the high school, and Karen is yelling, Michael, Michael. And she finds him, and Mike's sitting in the back of an ambulance. She hugs him and they cry. And of course, Ted is there, but like you call him, milk toast Ted is just like hands in the pocket talking with a paramedic as if like, yeah, this happened last week. It happens all the time.
Yeah.
No big
Yeah.
deal. Yeah, so we cut from Will coming back to life essentially in the Upside Down to uh cut back to real life, and we're at the high school and the aftermath of what 11 has just done.
Yeah. The scene of him pounding on Will's chest, you just like, what's crazy, we just saw him when 11 makes contact with him in the bathtub. Like, in real time, that was maybe an hour ago
Mhm.
when we see the Demogorgon bust through Castle Byers, maybe 2 hours ago. So it's like he was safe to whatever extent he could be then. And he told, his mom to hurry through 11, but then now he's kind of pinned against the wall in the library with this thing in his mouth. So you hope anyway that whatever happened with Castle Byers, Demogorgon or whatever it was that busted through that, took him to the library an hour ago, and started kind of, taking his energy, taking his life
Yep.
form or force or whatever.
Yep.
So you get the impression that Hopper and Joyce got there at the last possible second they could have before it was over for him.
Right.
Um, and so thankfully, Hopper's CPR training and police, first responder like that, it works. And um, he's going through it physically as he's exerting all this energy in CPR, but also emotionally as he's pushing through his own traumatic memory of his daughter's passing
Mm-hmm.
in the hospital.
Yep.
And he's exactly the man for the job because it works.
That's true. Woo. From the high school parking lot, we cut to Will in a hospital bed, and he wakes up, and sitting right beside him are Joyce and Jonathan, and they're just so ecstatic to see him waking up on his own. And Will's confused, like, where am I? And they just say, "You're home. You're home now. You're safe." And Jonathan's like, "We missed you." And then Will notices that Jonathan has a bandage on his hand, and Will says to Jonathan, "Are you okay?" And Jonathan's like, "It's just a cut. It's nothing. Like, well, how could you be worried about me? Like, you crazy kid."
Yeah.
Jonathan says, "We brought you some stuff, a new mixtape I think you're really going to like." From there, we cut to the hospital kind of waiting room, and we see Hopper sitting there. Ted is, of course, sleeping. Then we see Steve, we see Karen, we see Nancy, we see Dustin, who's asleep, on Lucas, who's also asleep. But Mike, he's sitting there and he just looks very troubled. He's not asleep, he's awake. When Jonathan comes in, and as if to say, "Come see him now." And Mike wakes up Lucas and Dustin, guys, he's up, Will's up, come on. And the three boys go into Will's hospital room and they're like, "Byers!" And they pile on him, even though he's pretty weak, but they just dog pile on him to give him a hug. And then they just start rattling off everything that's been happening while Will's been away. "You won't believe what happened. We had a funeral for you. There was a cute girl there at your funeral and she cried for you. Troy peed himself." And then Will kind of interrupts their recounting by coughing, and they're like, "Oh, maybe you're still kind of out of it." Will says, "It got me, the Demogorgon." And Mike's like, "We know, but it's okay because we made a friend and she saved us all. Her name's 11." And they're like, "Yeah, she has superpowers." And they start talking over each other again. And we see that Nancy has kind of been observing and listening from behind, but she doesn't really go in to like say hi to Will. She just kind of walks out, and Jonathan sees that she doesn't come all the way in. She just walks out. Also walking out, Hopper walks out by himself. He doesn't go in. That's noteworthy. Hopper walks out by himself into the night, lights a cigarette, and as he's smoking it, a black car rolls up. Someone gets out of the front passenger seat. I think it's maybe one of the security guards we've seen a few times. The security guard just opens the back door, and without a word, Hopper just gets in the back seat and goes with them. And it pans up to the starry sky, just like the intro.
Dude, I remember watching this after this ending. It's like it feels like the end of the episode where Will's at the hospital bed and he's recovering. We've already had the kind of classic 80s action movie ending or 90s action movie ending with the all the police cars and the fire truck and the protagonist in a blanket, and it just feels like the end of the episode
Oh
here.
yeah,
Then Hopper like doesn't say anything, doesn't go in to see Will, walks outside by himself, looking unaffected by it all, smoking a cigarette. Then a black car pulls up. Hopper doesn't seem surprised at all. He doesn't seem like he's not expecting it. It
right.
almost feels like he is expecting it.
Like right on time.
Looks, yeah, kind of looks, doesn't really even look at the car, just like he knows. And then the door opens for him and he gets in, flicks his cigarette away, and we're just like, what?
Yeah,
What is he doing?
that could have been
And it
the
just,
end of season one right there.
yeah, oh yeah. but it's like you hope that it's just he's made some sort of deal with them, just like we saw. But
Hmm.
the elephant in the room is like, does he know these guys? Has he been like working with them? Is he
Oh
a double
yeah,
agent? Is all of this all, is this some major huge plot twist that we don't know about here at the very end?
right.
Very unsettling
Yeah,
scene. Very unsettling.
it might as well. It could have been that was enough to hook me for season two. Like,
Oh yeah.
and sure enough, we still don't find out with him, but it's not the end of this episode because we cut to a screen that says 1 month later, and falling from the sky is this stuff that sure enough looks like particulate from the upside down, but it's just snow because it's actually December and Christmas time. The Wheeler's house is decorated all pretty for Christmas, and inside the basement, the boys are back to playing Dungeons and Dragons together. And I think it's Mike is narrating their campaign, and sure enough, the worst possible scenario happens. It's the Thessal Hydra, and they cut to Will, and they're like, "Will, what's your action?" And one of them's like, "Fireball, the son of a bitch." And so Will rolls the dice. 14. Ah, they rejoice because 14 was the number they wanted. Mike says the beast crumbles to the ground and claws its hand one last time, and the beast dies. And they all celebrate, but then they're like, that campaign was way too short and it didn't make sense. And they start questioning Mike about his like leadership of this campaign and like this it was too short. And Mike's like, it was 10 hours. At that time, Jonathan comes down the steps and goes, "What's that smell? You guys been playing games all day or just farting?" It's the best brothers. They all think that's super funny. Lucas accuses Dustin of being the one farting the whole time. Jonathan's there to pick up Will. Uh, as they leave, Dustin and Lucas start wrestling in the background as Mike kind of pensively looks at Eleven's empty bed with a walkie-talkie in it. As Jonathan and Will leave the kitchen, Miss Karen says to the Byers boys, "Hey, wish your mom a Merry Christmas." And then, as just before he's about to leave, Nancy runs up to Jonathan and says, "Hey, wait up!" And Nancy hands him a present, a Christmas gift. And Jonathan's awkward. He's like, "Thanks. I didn't get you anything. I feel bad." And Nancy goes, "No, it's not really a present. It's well, you'll see." And Nancy gives him a Christmas kiss on the cheek. They say Merry Christmas. They get in Jonathan's car. Jonathan tells Will, "Buckle up." And Will's curious. He sees the present. He's like, "Can I open it?" Jonathan's like, "Yeah." And he opens it, and it's a new camera for Jonathan. And Will's like, "Pretty cool." And Jonathan's like, "Yeah, pretty cool." Back into the house for one more scene there. And Ted is, surprise, surprise, Ted's asleep. And it pans over, and Nancy is sitting on the couch in Steve's arms. Steve's like, "Did you give it to him?" Nancy said, "Yeah."
Yeah, you get the impression that everything is kind of right with the world again. The boys are playing Dungeons and Dragons again with no PTSD involved, and
Yeah.
Jonathan's now comfortable enough to just walk into the Wheeler's house and come downstairs, and they all know each other now. And
Mm-hmm.
Karen's like, "Hey, wish Joyce a Merry Christmas for me." And Nancy is being, again, very friendly and kind to Jonathan by getting him the new camera. But then you see her sit down on the couch with Steve. But we feel differently about it now than we maybe would have otherwise because we
Sure.
like Steve now. He's come to the rescue.
It's true.
I get the idea that Steve might have even been the one to initiate buying Jonathan the camera. Like
Yep.
it's actually from Steve,
Yep.
but he just has Nancy give it to him.
Mm-hmm.
So again, everything's kind of right with the world again, at least in that little circle of Hawkins. Um, until the next scene.
Well, it cuts to the sheriff's office, and there's a holiday party going on. Briefly on like a bulletin board, we see some news articles, and one of them is of Will, headline, "The Boy Who Comes Back to Life." And I briefly read that article. It says things like he's in stable condition, but his mom alleges that Will was the subject of a secret government program run by the Hawkins lab. So it's like, Joyce, what's happened? Hopper said, "Don't say anything about this if you want Will back." But newspaper is saying that Joyce is alleging that this is the lab's fault. Big investigations coming because it's a very secretive organization. Even there's a quote from Terry Ives. Someone says we should be directing our energy to the Soviets, not our own daughters and sons. And of course, Dr. Brenner has no comment. Folks are still arriving to this holiday party, but Hopper's already smoking a cigarette, zipping up his jacket, grabbing Tupperware, and starts throwing stuff in there. Like he's already done with this party. And the receptionist walks up to him, basically takes the cigarette from his mouth, says, "Merry Christmas, Hop." So Hop leaves the party early, gets into his truck, drives off, but he pulls off on a snowy road with the Tupperware. And he takes the Tupperware into the woods, and there's a little box, and he lifts the lid. He puts the Tupperware in the box and then some saran wrapped Egos. What's that about?
Yeah. I don't know. Clearly, he has been hiding food in the woods for 11, but that's all we get to see. We don't know
If it's the first time,
what, and we don't know anything.
yep.
We don't, I mean, it might be that he's hoping that he can find 11 maybe if he does that. Has he been doing this for a while? It says 1 month later. Has he been doing this with 11? Does he know where she is? Does that have something to do with why he pulled away with the black car security people? We don't know. It is fascinating that in that article, there's a statement from Terry Ives
Mm-hmm.
because we know that Terry Ives doesn't talk. Like
Right.
Terry Ives isn't capable of giving a statement.
Perhaps it's an old
So
statement.
it calls into question where that article. I guess that could be. Yeah, that could be. But certainly is not what we expected after the kind of agreement that, like, hey, we're going to forget that this ever happened.
Yep.
If it's legitimate, if she actually is claiming that, why did she break that arrangement? But so many questions here at the end of the season, even as we're wrapping everything up.
They're just reeling us in for season 2 to the finish line. There is one last scene. It's a very tender scene. It's Christmas at the Byers' house. So now all those lights make sense finally. And Jonathan's using his new cameras to take pictures of Will investigating his presence. His mom looks so happy. It's like, as an actress, she has spent 95% of this season with just terror and worry on her face. And as an actress, there's just not an ounce of it anymore. She's so happy. And Jonathan's taking pictures of her. And Joyce is like, "What are you doing?" And Jonathan's like, "Documenting." And Joyce is like, "Oh, the food doesn't look good. It's burnt and that's runny." And Jonathan's like, "Mom, it's going to be great." And Will walks in and he says, basically, "I know what's in that big package. It's an Atari. Uh, Dustin got one and it's the exact same way. It's an Atari." And his mom does the classic, and and a whaty, like playing dumb. So funny. So they sit down to eat, and then Will's like, "Oh, I gotta go wash my hands." And Jonathan and Nancy, or Jonathan and Joyce look at each other like, "He washes his hands now?" So Will goes into the bathroom to wash his hands, but he just kind of leans over the sink and looks at himself and then acts like he's about to start throwing up, and he chokes on something and he coughs into the drain. And we see something that looks alive, like a little slug slither into the drain, this thing that Will has coughed up. And he just kind of is in shock, and he's looking at himself in the mirror. And for about 2 seconds, poor Will either has a flashback or is just transported into the upside down, right there at his own sink in his house. But for about two
Yep.
seconds, he's back in the upside down, then back to reality. He turns off the water, goes back into the dining room table, and his mom can even tell that she's like, "Are you okay?" Will's like, "Yeah, I'm okay." And then the scene ends with them talking about Dungeons and Dragons. Like, what have you been doing? And Will's like, "We've been playing." "No, it's just Dungeons and Dragons." And so they start talking about what that is as the camera zooms out of the Byers' house. It's peaceful, Christmassy, but very strange scene. And roll the ending
Yeah.
credits.
That's the end of season 1.
Ooh.
what Will coughs up in the sink is pretty much exactly what climbs out of Barb's mouth when 11 finds her
Mm-hmm.
in the void while she's in the bathtub. It's not the first time we've seen that, but it is concerning that it comes out of Barb's mouth as she's gone, as 11 says. And Will's not fully out of the woods. He's not recovered.
No.
He's not back to normal. And I think it sets up that Will is probably going to carry what happened to him over the last 5-6 days for a long time, if not for the rest of his life. I mean, everything around him is happy and jolly, and they're celebrating Christmas, but he's still dealing with the fallout of what happened to him. And let's see what else. Yeah, so we get out of this episode with a lot of questions. What Hopper up to? Is 11 there? What's she doing? What effect is this going to have on Will, if any? Is it going to be negative? Is it going to give him, some insight into stuff? We've wrapped up the kind of main storyline of Will is back home, but now it's what's going to happen next. And we don't know, but we're so eager. We don't have to wait a year like we did after season 1 in real time.
That's true.
And so if you've been watching these, we will have a brief season 1 recap, kind of overviewing the entire season. It won't be as long as each episode's podcast, but that'll be coming out soon. So look for that as well. Just as we get ready to launch into season 2, we're not going to take any delay. We're going to move right into season 2 on the same kind of schedule we've been keeping for these episodes.
1 down, 3 more to recap. And I'm about to catch an airplane, but that slug scene made me hungry, so I'm going to have to find a snack here in the airport before I take the flight.
Yeah, grab yourself a couple Eggo waffles, and we'll see you all back here for season 2, episode 1, coming up soon here on the Hawkins Observer.